of Political Affairs OIC.
أصحاب المعالي وأصحاب السعادة الحضور الكريم.
Excellencies, Director General of the Institute of Strategic Studies, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, seminar organized by the Institute of Strategic Studies Islamabad. And I wish to thank Ambassador Ahmed, the Director General of the Institute, for extending an invitation. Is one of the oldest internationally recognized disputes on the agenda of the OIC. And the OIC has been Kashmir for more than 4 decades now. The OIC has extended summits and the resolutions at the ministerial meetings. These decisions and resolutions are in for the right to self-determination and the call for a peaceful settlement of the Jammu and Kashmir dispute in accordance with the United Nations Security Council is laid out in the most recent resolutions adopted by the Council of Ministers at its 47th session held in Niamey.
We are a party to the dispute along with India. So the significance of Pakistan is excessively dependent on OIC's support, OIC's position, and OIC's endorsement of the need for a peaceful settlement. I'll draw attention in terms of post-5th August events and starting from the very date itself when India took the first illegal action and has followed it up with a spate of other illegal measures. In terms of setting perhaps the context right for more knowledgeable speakers to analyze it in legal terms, in historical terms, and as well as looking at the way forward on how to go about dealing with dispute in terms of Pakistan's foreign policy options. The most important thing, of course, everyone of us knows here, but it is important to mention it at the outset that it was India that took the issue to the Security Council in 1948. And after hours of debate, there are documents, voluminous documents that capture it. The international community decided that it was not about a territory which belonged to either India or Pakistan, listening to all the arguments. It was essentially about the right to self-determination of the Kashmiri people, because they, being the concerned party, were never consulted in a solution. So that right to self-determination was accorded to them. Now, since we have this, I'm at the head of a pioneering act as the first permanent representative of Pakistan to OIC, and since we have a new mission dedicated to OIC and other international organizations that form part of the broader OIC system, we have been trying to project and promote one important thing, and I would like to place it before this August House as well, is that Palestine and Kashmir are essentially premised on the right to self-determination. they have a common genesis. If you look at the sequence, the resolution on Kashmir was passed in January 1948. Palestine one followed in March 1948. So sequentially, the concepts that are part of the prescribed solution, the concepts were basically discovered or put forth or for the first time promoted in the Kashmir, in case of Kashmir, and then later transposed and weaved into the Palestine resolution. So that sequence also has to be borne in mind when we look at the commonality of genesis of these two issues, which form part of the OIC agenda and international agenda. Now, in taking actions with regard to revocation of Article 370 and 35A, what India did was it violated not only a series of UN resolutions, including 47 and 91, it also violated a number of international instruments, including the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights, etc., etc. This goes on. Again, what is important to be put in perspective and perhaps be pursued not only in terms of the proceedings of this seminar, but later at the ISSI, is that in terms of resolution 80 and 91, they were passed, UNSC resolutions, when India was a non-permanent member of the Security Council. Now they never objected to that resolution, those resolutions. They abstained. This is very significant, that they abstained in terms of those resolutions, where the standard prescription, which is the resolution of the dispute through the democratic method of a free and fair plebiscite, is being prescribed. They never objected to it as non-permanent members. When we say that there are numerous statements from the Indian leadership on record, written, even in terms of voice recording, where they are promising the right to self-determination of the Kashmiri people, this legal fact also perhaps needs to be weaved into the narratives going forward. That's important. The other thing perhaps which needs to be borne in mind is that the Kashmiri Muslims, basically as has already been mentioned, are being turned into a minority through the domicile law and through following the revocation of Article 370. The illegal actions that are being taken is basically transforming them into a minority, and this is a unilateral action. Such a unilateral action taken either by India or Pakistan at any stage, being the two parties to the dispute, is not admissible under UNSC Resolution 122. And of course, the Fourth Geneva Convention also applies to it. I'm sure the legal discussions that will take place later in this seminar will shed more light on it. Now, going forward, what I want to perhaps prescribe is that, at least I can suggest as a serving diplomat and dealing with the issue hands-on at the OIC, is that we have an opportunity. The 48th session of the Islamic Council of Foreign Ministers, OIC Council of Foreign Ministers, is slated to be held in Pakistan this year. Next year, I think around 23rd of March, with the 75th anniversary celebration. So that is an opportunity for us to come up with perhaps an action plan and at least look at the resolution 2334 of the Security Council, which on Palestine basically sort of rejects the Israeli settlements in the occupied territories, and it calls them an obstacle in terms of the just and comprehensive settlement of the Palestinian issue. I think such an admonishment of Security Council on the Kashmir issue is also perhaps necessary and an imperative. Due to paucity of time, I would wind up my remarks here, and I would be listening more keenly to the essentially legal discussion that will follow. Thank you.
At Georgetown University, USA. Currently, he is the co-chair of Decade LLP and international law firm.
Assalamu alaikum and greetings from Washington, D.C. My name is Ahmed Ali and I am the co-chair of Decade LLP's International Arbitration.
Institute of Strategic Studies and Bill Self invited me here, and the organizers, Honorable Izaz Chaudhry Sahab, Mr. Khalid Sahab, the chief guest, Sheikh Rashid Sahab, and we're almost 1 day is left for the completion of 2 years of the application of Article 370 and 35A, and most of the people around the world, I mean, they've condemned it, and when this heinous crime was committed against the Kashmiris 2 years back. At that time, if you recall, there was a lot of global condemnation against this act because it was an act of genocide, a death warrant being signed against an unarmed and defenseless nation of Kashmiri people, but also at the same time it was a violation of the UN resolutions, as the previous speakers also spoke about the legal aspect, like the Apartheid Convention and the Geneva Convention for violation. So it was a violation, a surpassing of the UN resolutions, the international law, humanitarian law, Geneva Conventions, and Kashmiri people are day by day for the past 2 years have not just been facing the violence coming from the Indian occupational forces, but at the same time, the pace of the Indians being settled over there is increasing with every day. And the first few months, especially after this action of 5th of August, we saw a lot of global intervention or protests happening all over the world, and the international media coverage and condemnations coming from all over the world. But sadly, it was our bad luck, and also for the world also, that in March 2020 there was a lockdown because of COVID, and the global focus it shifted from the Kashmir issue towards battling COVID-19, and the world was in a lockdown. They were losing jobs, there was depression, people were losing their loved ones. So in a way it was tragic for the Kashmiris, because we were already in a lockdown and in a siege after 5th of August and a curfew. But then now I think after these 2 years almost, I feel that the general public around the world, at least they can kind of relate to the Kashmiri people of not just a similar lockdown obviously, because there is a huge difference between the lockdown that the Kashmiris are witnessing and what the people around the world, because your lockdowns are in the 4th wave, 2nd, 3rd wave, the governments or the regimes around the world are trying to save their public, their lives. But over here in Kashmir, it's the total reverse. Over here, we're locked down to kill us, to eliminate us, to marginalize us, and also to snatch away all our basic rights. And in simple terms, I would say that Kashmiris became refugees on their own land on this day, on 5th of August. And Article 370, as we keep discussing it, and 35A, Article 370, basically it ensures a certain degree of autonomy to the Kashmiri people, and 35A ensures a separate citizenship law under the Indian Constitution. So both were abrogated, and Kashmiris became dismembered and stateless, and they lost their right to identity completely. Before 5th of August, it was the occupational forces that were there. There were draconian laws. People were being killed. Rape was used as a weapon of war, and all sorts of heinous, gruesome crimes were being committed. But the difference between post and pre 5th of August is that at that time, previously, we had the occupational forces, but now We had the Indian public also marching into Kashmir and snatching away the property rights, ownership rights, political rights, economic rights, taking away a huge quota of the jobs over there, the job opportunities for the Kashmiris, for the educational quota, and a lot of Indian students are being shifted to Kashmiri universities, and they are taking the rights of the Kashmiri people, and a lot of shrines over there, tourist resorts. Now they're all under the control of the Delhi regime directly. The dargahs over there, the mandirs also, some of the mandirs, and a lot of legal protection is being given to the Indians over there. And we must keep in mind that, you know, when you compare Azad Kashmir with Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir, I mean, one thing I can proudly say is that no Pakistani can buy land in Azad Kashmir because that demography is being protected by the people of Kashmir and they have a state subject. Whereas in the case of the other side, it's a total reverse, as I mentioned before, that Kashmiris are, you know, being marginalized, and especially recently after the DDC elections, there was an APC conducted by Mr. Modi, and he invited his favorite Kashmiri puppets. Mr. Walid is giving me that grin, but yeah, that's what we call them, those Kashmiri puppet politicians, or the Abdullah dynasty, or the Muftis, and they were invited along with a few others. It was basically not just because of international pressure or some kind of drama or theatre being, acted upon over there. It was basically to go one step forward on their plans of changing the demography. And already the elections that are being conducted under the Indian gun after every 4 to 5 years over there, we've seen in the past also that majority Kashmiris have always boycotted those elections because they do not consider elections free and fair under the Indian gun. And naturally the Kashmiris are fighting for their right to plebiscite and right to self-determination. So these politicians were basically invited there to give them that confidence, or to discuss with them that now we're going to go one step further, that first we used to have those seats allotted for them on the basis of religion because it is a majority Muslim region, but now we'll do it on the basis of the geography. So map tracking was taking place over here, and now they're allotting more seats to the Jammu people. So Pakistan and the Hurriyat leadership, it rejects these elections, but this is part of the process, and in a span of 2 years, over 4 million Indians have been granted state domicile certificates, and Indian business community also. So I think it's very, very important that a lot of people discuss the impacts it has had on the Kashmiri public, on marginalizing them, and it's not humanly possible for them, especially when they are leaderless right now. All our leadership is locked up, they're being tortured, they're being jailed, they're being silenced. You have Gilani Sahab, he's house arrested for many years. Mr. Mirwais is house arrested. My husband Yasin is in a death cell in Bihar, and then you have Asiya Saiba in Bihar and Shabir Shah Sahab. So when the leadership is not there, even the second-tier leadership is not there, it is literally a leaderless movement, but that sentiment of azadi and freedom is so deep-rooted that no matter what Indians do or the Indian state does, they cannot kill it. But I think we strongly need legal action on this. We can condemn it, we can protest about it, but unless and until we don't take our case to the International Court of Justice, International Criminal Court, to challenge the war crimes being committed against humanity, and especially as the previous speaker also mentioned, Fourth Geneva Convention violation, because in a disputed territory it's illegal to change the demography. It's completely illegal because it falls under the UN umbrella. Nobody can change the demography in Azad Kashmir. Nobody is allowed to change it in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir till the final settlement. Because our entire struggle will go in vain if sooner or later we've become into a mini Indian colony, and it's a mini India. And then the voting is conducted, plebiscite. What will we do? Where will our sacrifices go? So this is the time to act, and I would also request that, because we have a lot of people from the Foreign Office also, that I have another event right now with the Foreign Minister. I've discussed it with them as well, that we must have a legal cell in the Foreign Office, and this think tank also, Institute of Strategic Studies, and all you're already doing great work, research on strategic planning, on Kashmir, on the region. So I think it's very, very important to have a framework of taking it internationally through the legal eye, because it was a lawfare committed by India. And then we should also work internationally and lobby within the UN to table a resolution over there demanding a population census on Kashmir, because we have no idea. The reports that we are getting is that over 4 million Indians have gotten domicile certificates. So these are things where time is running short. I think by next year, God forbid, we are here to speak up on the 3rd anniversary of this abrogation. I'm afraid we might become into a minority at the pace which Modi is going. So I think it's very, very important to focus on the legal aspect, and also, as the Foreign Office has sent a dossier of the RSS being a terrorist organization, I think we need to work on that also strongly, because that is the main root cause of that Akhand Bharat narrative that is ruling India right now. So thank you very much.
Ma'am, I now invite Mr. Jamal Aziz for his remarks. Mr. Aziz is a recognized international law expert.
I'm very thankful to the Institute of Strategic Studies for inviting me here today. I've been given 10 minutes to talk on a subject which is very, very complex legally. So I will not focus on the legal specifics, but focus more on the broader theme of how we can use international law to advance Pakistan's narrative. Now, I've been fortunate to be practicing international law in Pakistan for more than 10 years now, and I'm currently heading the Research Society of International Law, Pakistan's largest legal think tank, and I'm also a director of international law at the National Defense University. I've been fortunate to work on these cases, and I've witnessed firsthand the importance international law plays in shaping such narratives. The importance international law plays in advancing your foreign policy objectives and in promoting and securing your national security strategy. After all, this narrative against Pakistan that we are a state sponsor of terrorism did not occur in a vacuum, and it did not occur overnight. It happened as a result of reliance spread over several years, spanning decades actually, based and rooted on UN Security Council resolutions, counter-terrorism frameworks, mutual legal assistance, domestic laws of powerful Western states, and domestic cases within India. Backed by rigorous academia, articles, books, engagements in foreign think tanks and universities, and with that, gradually, this strategy or this narrative gained momentum. So much so that it became easy to target Pakistan through the fact of grey listing.
Distinguished Foreign Minister, Director General ISSI, and Ambassador Khalid being the chair. Let me at the very outset compliment the ISSI for organizing this discourse on Kashmir in time with the second anniversary of Indian assault on the Kashmiri identity. Hopefully this exercise and similar other exercises will be clinical, right focused in relation to the challenges that we continue to face. The exercise, as I see it, is twin-faceted. It should unfold a frank and candid discussion, short of rhetoric, as may be needed for policy evaluation. It may also provide a stepping stone for a right focus of our advocacy drive. Mr. Chairman, our discussion today will convey more sense as we see through the relationship between our narratives and its acceptability, and again between the righteousness of our cause and our power potential to make a dent. These are the pillars of contemporary real polity and landmarks in the turbulent waters of our time that we are expected to sail through. In the discussion of our interface with international community, we need to first look back on the primary and the elementary question of cause and effect. What is the nature of the Indian action of 5 August?
Azad Saab, Madam Mushaal, the vibrant leader of the 4th generation of Kashmir resistance, and my teacher is sitting in front of me, who taught me in the PhD, and I'm thankful to ladies and gentlemen. Assalamu alaikum. My presentation is something technical and something innovative, and it needs a little bit concentration, because I will provide you what is the genesis, what is the doctrine behind, and what is the way forward. Probably we have a little time. I might not get much time to present it, but I will try to present it briefly. Democratic terrorism is systematic, and it is sustained and linear. It is nothing new. If you will see the data from the first census that was carried in 1912 in Maharaja era, and we were 85% in majority, and the last census converted in the minority. Now I will give you the graph of what happened. Population of Hindus was only, Hindu population was little, that is only 20.
Lights on, कौन सी करेगा? Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. The Institute of ISSI Studies, I don't know whether it's chairman or MD or whatsoever it is, ISSI. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great opportunity for me to address such an intellectual gathering. Mostly I don't have a much privilege of such kind of gatherings, and I believe I have learned much. I know Kashmir inside. Whether it's Amit or Ajit or Shankar or Modi, Hitler Modi, anybody else. But I know the Kashmiris, they know how to sacrifice. One is the theoretical part and one is the practical life. I'm a practical Kashmiri. And I assure you, whatever the consequences and whatever the crisis, maybe I have 3-4 speeches, everybody has given me his intellectual thought. You know, the people who are giving their life, they are the best study, whether they have a domicile or don't have a domicile, where biography is going to change or not. But this region where I am addressing you today is one of the South Asia is going to be one of the important region, and Pakistan is going to play a very important role, inshallah, because and Kashmir has also the same geographical situation. And one of my dear friend, I'll take his study also. I'm not a researcher, or I'm not a student of Harvard, Essex, Berkeley, or Oxford. I'm a street smart political worker. And I assure you, one day Kashmir and Kashmiri will win whatsoever situation may be in the world and whatsoever the crisis may be in this area, because they have given so much sacrifice of their life and shahadat. And what the India is doing now, they want to destabilize Pakistan. What they did in Lahore, what they did in Quetta. I must say to these studies, because I'm triple S, short, sweet and smart, I have given my time already, and I was on right time, and it started 15 minutes late. But one thing I just want to give you suggestion. Now the hybrid war is started against Pakistan. You must have a study for the media, and especially the social media, for the support of the Kashmiris, for the support of the Kashmir issues. Nobody has enough time to study the books and books. I have written a third book, luckily it's well sold. But now people are mostly on computer and net. But if you see the electronic media, what they're doing by the BBC and CNN today, some journalists were coming in Pakistan and India stopped them. India didn't allow them to come in Pakistan. And they have the Kashmiris don't have internet, they don't have internationally their connection with the world. Even then they are alive. Even then they are trying their best to fight their case internationally and domestically. I'm glad that OIC has supported Kashmir issue, and this gentleman representing OIC just said that they are standing with the Kashmiris. And in my political life, I think the Mahathir or Erdogan or the Iranian president, they are the three personalities who oppose 370, 35A publicly. So I may have, I missed some names, but still I remember there were only three personalities in the world after Imran Khan, because Imran Khan fought Kashmiri's case very courageously. I've been the part of the United Nations, and I have a time to address in 1980s. That was my dream, and I know what our diplomacy was doing there. There was a time when diplomacy was very important. See the Afghanistan. They fought with Sikhs, they fought with British, they fought with Russian, and now they defeated 40 countries, and the blame is coming on us. We are not at the side. Whosoever the Afghanis will decide, that will be acceptable for us. And this is the Afghanis who has to decide, because peace in Afghanistan is the requirement of the peace in Pakistan. And I believe the Kashmiris and whatever India economically, politically, socially rise up, whatever they can. But time will prove, without the solution of Kashmir, they will always be in trouble. They'll be always in trouble. Whether we support them, whether we research them, whether we study them, but Kashmiri himself is a very genius people. They are very genius people, they are futurists. Don't underestimate Kashmiri, please. If you think that Kashmiri don't know the international politics, if you think that Kashmiri don't know how they have to handle this all crisis they've been handling last 70 years, more than 70 years. And in the end, I'm 15 minutes late, but it's an honor for me that you have invited me on the issue. I am a son of Sahib. I'm a full Kashmiri.